Hello and welcome to the first video in the video series that I'm doing for the Web Art and Design class. In this first video, I'm going to introduce you to some basic HTML. We're going to use the HTML to do what's called markup some text. So our first goal is to see how does a web page see text when there's no HTML there. And that's what we're going to start with. And then we're going to slowly start structuring that page, the text on that page, with some HTML. And we're going to use this as an exercise to learn our first HTML tags. The paragraph tag, the heading tag. So on here you can see I have a heading 1. They're all heading 1, heading 2, heading 3, all these different tags. There's a break tag, the line break tag. Horizontal rule if you want to create just simply a line to be able to separate out information. So these are the first HTML tags that we're going to work with in this first exercise. And then after this we're going to jump into Dreamweaver. So let's get started. So on Blackboard, I have some text, and it's called the Black Goose restaurant text or something like that. And this is the text that you don't have to type in. You're going to simply copy and paste. And this is the text that we're going to see how does a web browser work with this text if it doesn't have any HTML. The next thing that we need besides the text is we need to have a basic text editor for creating simple web pages on your computer. So if you're following along with the book, as you should be, actually in the reading that is assigned for this week, there are pages for if you're working on a Mac or if you're working on a PC of how to access the free editors. I'll show you if you're on Windows, you can simply, over here, go to your search and type in Notepad. And don't use Notepad++ because that's more advanced. We want really just like the basic Notepad, and then here we go. This is what we're looking for. So as I said, in the next video series, we're going to jump into Dreamweaver because there are so many other things in Dreamweaver for us to learn about. So I want to just start off with Notepad so we can really focus on the basics of HTML. So I'm going to take this text and I'm going to just copy it all and put it over here into Notepad. And it looks like it already is formatted a little bit. It looks like there's what I would call a little bit of hierarchy. And the hierarchy is simply that I have the category sections lined up on top of the paragraph, and there's spacing. There's not a lot of hierarchy, but there's a little bit. If there was no hierarchy, there wouldn't be any spacing. Everything would just kind of run together. So I'm going to save this. I'm going to go to Save As, and I'm going to save it as, I have to choose here, All Files. I want to save it as an HTML. So, I'm going to give it the name first, because it's going to be my first version, .html. And that's all I need to do to save it as a web page. And now I need to open up that folder. So I have mine, I saved it right here in my web art folder. Here's first. And let's see what this looks like. This is an example of no hierarchy. And this is the way the web page is going to see some text, even though in my editor over here it looks like there's spacing and there's alignment and it has some hierarchy. There's nothing there. So the web page sees it like one continuous line if there's no HTML there. So let's go back to our file in Notepad. And one of the first tags actually we want to have here is we're going to wrap all of our text in the HTML tag because this is all HTML. So the way tags work is most tags have an opening and a closing. So I'm going to go up here and I'm going to put in my opening HTML tag, and then I'm going to go all the way to the bottom and I'm going to put my closing HTML tag. And now all of this text is wrapped as in HTML. Let's see if this makes a difference with the browser. I'm going to save this, Control S to save it, and I'll open up that web page again and let's refresh it. And it doesn't make a difference to the browser. So it's good that it's there, but that's still not going to be the thing that's going to start making my page have structure. So the first tag I want to talk about is the paragraph tag. I'm going to put a paragraph tag around this whole section here. This looks like one paragraph, right? So I'm going to put a paragraph. I have my opening paragraph tag, and then down here I'm going to have my closing paragraph tag. Oops. And let's save this, Control S, and I'll go back over to my web page that has that file and I'll reload it. Hey, and now I start to see a change. This is kind of interesting. So I put the paragraph tag, let's just pull up the editor here, I put the paragraph tag right before the restaurant and right after ingredients. So I can see that what the paragraph tag does is it immediately puts that text onto another line. That's why the restaurant is down from Black Goose Restaurant, because the paragraph tag creates space above and after it. Okay, so now that we know that, let's go back over here. And actually I want the restaurant and this over here to have to be separate paragraphs. So I'm going to wrap my paragraph tag, start it here. Now I can't have two opening paragraph tags, so I'm going to get rid of that one. And I'm going to come down here, and this is what I want to have to be a paragraph. So I'll put an opening paragraph tag here and a closing paragraph tag, here. And let's save this and see the changes. Let's go over here. And now I start to see some interesting kind of changes. So catering is up here, and this has come down. And so now I can start to see all of these different paragraphs, how they're forming. But Black Goose Restaurant and the restaurant are all on one line, and that's not really what I want. So let's talk about the next tag. The next tag I want to talk about is the H1 tag. So the most important item on the page is what should be the largest item. And that's generally the name of whatever is the product or the restaurant or whatever it is that they're going to. So in this case, they're going to the Black Goose Restaurant. And that should be the first thing that grabs their attention when they get onto the page. So instead of just making this a paragraph, which I could, and I'll just do that quickly as an example. And I'll make this a paragraph as well. So we can look at this and save it and refresh this page. So now I have Black Goose Restaurant on one line, the restaurant on another line, and this comes directly underneath it. That's great, but there's not a lot of hierarchy here. If I look at this page quickly, they're all kind of the same. I don't know which thing is more important. Is catering just as important as Black Goose Restaurant? So that's where we're going to start using these other tags. The one that I want to be the most important, I'm going to wrap in my H1 tag, and that's the name of the restaurant. And that's just going to work with an opening and closing tag, just like the other ones. And the restaurant itself, I'm going to give it an H2. So it's going to be larger than paragraph, but slightly smaller than H1. And there we go. Now we start to have a little bit of hierarchy. So let's see, what else can we do to this page to create some more hierarchy? Well, let's see what this would look like actually instead of an H2 and H3. I'm going to make it a little bit smaller so there's a bigger differentiation between the name of the restaurant and these categories. Catering as a category also needs to have the H3 tag wrapped around it because I want it to stand out. I don't want it to just get wrapped into being a paragraph. Okay, so I'm going to save this. I'm just using the keyboard shortcut Control S, and I'm going to come over to my page and refresh it. And oh, interesting. Looks like there's some kind of error here. So let's go back over to the text editor and see what the error is. The error is that I didn't properly close my H3 tag. So when you look at it here, everything essentially thinks that it's part of the H3 because the H3 was never closed. So this is kind of useful for you to know in terms of your troubleshooting. If it seems like all the text after your tag is taking on the attributes of that tag, and it shouldn't, check to see if you closed it properly. So I'm just going to simply add that H, and now that's closed properly, save it, and let's refresh this one again. And now it's behaving the way it should. Okay, what else can we do? Let's talk about some line breaks. So I'd like to have my text, location and hours, and then I'd like to have the location. I want it to be all kind of lined up. Actually, what I want is to have this directly underneath. I'm going to get rid of that comma. So I want it to be like this. I don't want it to be paragraphs. If I put the paragraph tag, there's going to be that double spacing in between each one. So instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a break. So that is the BR tag. And let's add that at the end of each one of these. And what do you notice that's a little bit different already about this tag that we haven't seen for our other tags? This is an empty tag. So it doesn't need to have an open and a start. It just simply needs to have the open. So now I can have what looks the way you would normally see the location and hours, where they're single spaced in between and not the double spacing of the paragraph. So I could continue and do that in my paragraph here as well. Let's go back over and let's see. So if I want this to just be moved down, I'm going to put a break there, so that's a line break, and I might put the same thing over here. So that's how I can start to get the text that is on my page here. I can start using the HTML to mark it up to look the way that I want it to. And I'll save this and come over here, and you can see how I'm able to move the text around. Just a couple more tags I want to talk about. I want to talk about the, there are some tags that you can use. The strong tag, the italics tag, the emphasize tag, and actually I'm going to move over, and I have this link on Blackboard to the W3 school, and I have this link right here. And it's going to go through these other tags, and these tags are also in your reading here that I'd like you to look at. Some of them, it's a little bit confusing at first to understand when to use which one, the bold versus the strong. They both have the same effect, which is that they make the text look like it's bold. But the difference is, bold doesn't give it any more meaning. It's just simply darker. Strong means to the browser, hey, this text is more important. Same thing with the difference between italics and emphasize. Italics is just going to make it look italic. Emphasize is also going to make it look italic. But it says to the browser, this is important text. Why does that make a difference? Well, because search engines use different algorithms to be able to pull up your website onto the search engine. So one of the things they're looking for in their algorithms is text that has importance. So if your text, the name of your restaurant, is just in italics, that may not come up. But if it's in strong, because strong means, hey, browser, this is important, that may come up in the browser. So there is really a difference. Just kind of think of it as emphasized and strong means this is important. What are these keywords you'd want to come up in a browser? Or if it's simply for the effect of looking bold or italicized, then just use the I tag and the B tag. Okay, so going back over here, and that's going to be covered a little bit more in your reading, and also this link to the W3 schools page that I would like you to look at. So I'm going to wrap the location and hours in the emphasize tag, the EM tag, and close that out. Let's see, we could even insert something, we'll handle the cooking. Let's emphasize that as well. So in here, let's save this, go back over to that file and refresh it so we can see. So there we can see the result. It is italicized. And then if we wanted to emphasize something else, we could perhaps make a word bold. I'm just going to kind of randomly pick. Let's make the menu changes regularly to highlight the freshest ingredients. Oh, let's make freshest ingredients bold. So I'm going to wrap this in the strong tag. And just so we can see that, Control S, and then we'll go over here. And there we go. We can see freshest ingredients. So this is your practice. What I would like you to do is, just pull this up. I'd like you to mark up a recipe and think about creating different kinds of hierarchy through grouping and different ways to emphasize and mark up the text. The tags that I would like you to do, and I'd like you to mark up 2 different recipes, or it can be the same recipe, mark up 2 recipes, but 2 different ways. So these are all the tags that I'd like you to use, but you don't have to use them all in each recipe. That's why I'd like you to do 2 different versions. The paragraph, the H1, the H2, you could also use the H3. So the rule about the heading tags is each one gets smaller, and if you want some, use these only for things that actually are headings. So in other words, if I had a word in my paragraph that I wanted to be slightly larger, I'm not going to wrap it in a heading because it's not a heading. We're going to do that through CSS, which we'll get to eventually, very soon actually. The emphasize or the italics tag, the strong or the bold tag, the break, and the horizontal rule. Oh, so that's the one I haven't covered yet. Let's go back over, pull up my text editor, and so the horizontal rule is going to create a break in thought. You can use this an awful lot in design to simply create hierarchy to separate items out. The HR for horizontal rule is just like the break tag, and that it's an open tag. So let's just see what this looks like. I'll do Control S and go back over here, and let's refresh, and I get a line there. So you're going to discover as you're getting more and more into this class and reading and thinking about design that some of the features that you're going to end up using for design will actually be simple elements like line and spacing. So that's what we're going to focus on in the beginning of the semester, how you can use spacing, the different sizes of font, and then we're going to get into the different types of font. And these really simple elements can often be the key features you're going to want to use to design your pages.